Hi, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to Wonder Snatch. Today I'm going to talk about Asian representation again, okay? I made a little comment on a Facebook group recently, okay, saying that I wish there was more Asian representation in recent seasons of Drag Race, okay? And I got really trolled by a whole bunch of racists. This really brought to my mind a lot of things about white supremacy and white fragility, so I think that's what I'm going to be talking about today, alright? I'm going to turn this into content, okay? I'm going to talk about all the comments that I got, okay? Some are quite good, but majority were monstrous, okay? And to do that, I'm going to recreate the beautiful Stop Asian Hate dress that Miss Singapore wore to the pageant. So, don't forget to subscribe. I know you want to. And, okay, let's get started. Okay, so blocked everything off, and also I'm wearing my Yes Fats, Yes Femmes, Yes Asian shirt by Kimchi. Okay, remember her amazing closing number from RuPaul's Drag Race Season 8, Fat, Femme, and Asian. Okay, so yeah, today I'm going to talk about that again. We just had a whole bunch of reckonings about Stop Asian Hate and everything, but it just doesn't seem to sink in as much as a Black Lives Matter. That is, the grassroots movement for Stop Asian Hate campaign doesn't seem to be as effective as Black Lives Matter or other form of social justice. I think Asians just don't seem to be that confrontational enough to keep these things going. I just have to do this video to just point things out, alright? Let's just start with some definitions, alright? I'll pop this shirt off first. It's much easier to take a shirt off now than to risk getting it all dirty later. So anyway, white fragility. White fragility is a term that's coined by Robin DiAngelo, who's a PhD in multicultural education, okay? And it refers to how white people respond to discussions about race. Because white people basically have no concept of being part of a race because they've been the default in most societies across the world, they find that sometimes when people of color talk about race, it's not real. Or they do feel it's real, but admitting that it's real means that they're part of a bigger problem, okay? So they respond with anger or denial or gaslighting sometimes even. And it's important to talk about it and to name it because I think we need to recognize that it exists, okay? White fragility. I mean, it's not a very nice term, and I'm sure a lot of white people watching will be very turned off by this, but I really think that this is important because I have definitely experienced it, okay? Probably experienced it myself too, being the majority race in Singapore, being Chinese in Singapore. You do feel a little bit insulted when people say that this is because you're part of the majority race that you're racist. Okay, I think in Singapore we're doing a lot better because of the way that the government has set up the races in Singapore. So I don't think I'm going to talk about that too much in this episode. But I don't deny that Chinese privilege in Singapore maybe does exist a little bit. Okay, but let's put that aside for now and talk about Asian representation, especially on Drag Race. Do a white mask to do my eyes first. This side is going to be red. Okay, but I'm going to go over this whole mask area with this white first. So red on this side I will have a red brow, and this side a white brow, I think. White fragility is not the same as white supremacy, okay? White supremacy is basically a little bit more toxic, a little bit more in your face, where white people believe that they are superior, okay? And it's also not the same as white privilege. White privilege is basically how white people benefit from structures in society that benefit them. Whereas white fragility is how they respond to things like race and representation and stuff like that. They all work together in this day and age. Oh, these by the way are the colors of the Singapore flag also. So this is like an early National Day look. I'm going to try my Morphe Agrani Greg palette. There's a pink and a darker pink and a red and a white, which I think might work very well for this video. I'm going to go in with the dark pink called 2016, and I'm just going to use this to map out my eye shade. Okay, so let's just get right into my experience on this Facebook group. So this Facebook group looked quite exciting. I mean, it had a lot of members, about 130,000, basically discussing Drag Race. And last week, after Coco Jumbo was eliminated from Drag Race Down Under, I thought, oh wow, that's, that was the last queen of color. And there was not any Asian queens at all in Down Under. There weren't any Asian queens in season 2 of Drag Race UK either. And so I thought I would just say how sad I was. Okay, so here's my actual message, and I say, anyone else sad that there are no Asian queens on Drag Race Holland, Drag Race UK season 2, and Drag Race Down Under? It's all the more stark now that there are no more queens of color on Down Under. That's all I said. All I meant was, I'm sad. I wish there was more representation. I guess that was really enough to get me trolled. I guess this group is known to be a little trolly because some people actually responded with these gifs about you're stirring it up now, girl. Okay, because I think they know that a lot of members on this group are pretty racist. This is other gif of, I think it's Tiana from Princess and the Frog, flopping down in exhaustion. Okay, people of color just being exhausted by these arguments. This is an example of one of the less vitriolic messages I got. It's Coco Jumbo and Jojo were both queens of color. What are you on about? I mean, isn't that exactly what I just said? I just said the queens of color were just eliminated. So obviously people just don't read, okay? And they just go in with anything about race and they just want to poke, I don't know. And then of course there are these awful ones, who cares? Okay, so, okay, yeah, I can. I just said I can, right? Going in with the red called Clown, deepen up. Okay, and here are some more horrible ones. I mean, some try to sound logical, like this one, okay? They say basically, queens should not be kept or selected due to their color. They should be judged on their talent. Of course they should. I mean, they should be judged on their talent, but representation definitely matters. I mean, this is basically suggesting that queens of color are not as talented as white queens, right? I mean, some people did come to my defense. I didn't interact at all with any of these horribly racist comments, okay? But there are other people in the group that definitely know that this is something that happens in this group and they will come and they came to my defense. So basically this guy was pretty good. They said, completely missed the point. White people like yourself are always going to be overrepresented on TV shows. So a person of color is nice to have someone to be there to be seen, which is true, which is, it makes such a huge difference, okay? When you see yourself represented on any reality show or any TV series, it just gives you the feeling that things are possible, okay? When I was growing up, I didn't see anyone that looked like myself on TV or anything, and I really wanted to be an actor. And my parents would just say that, yeah, you'll never get any parts because, only white people get the leading roles. This was ingrained in me for a very long time. Just think about the young queer kids of color who are watching nowadays. I mean, I think it was in the Hollywood, right? Ryan Murphy's Hollywood, where they reimagined what Hollywood would be like if people got representation in the 1930s and 40s. There was a scene in the last episode where all these kids of color were just watching these black and queer people getting the Oscars in 1930s, and these people get hope they can have the same kind of experience when they grow up. Yeah, and this guy was just saying that, it's probably because no queens of color auditioned for the show, but how does he know, okay? He doesn't know about the audition process or anything, so he's just trying to conflate my ask for representation for being, I don't know. This is no logic to these arguments sometimes. Now I'm going to use this pink called My Fave. There are all these other comments which erase their Asian presence in any countries at all. There are Asian people everywhere, and there are Asian queens everywhere, okay? If they want to be representative, they should have the same kind of demographic as you see in the clubs or in the bars or on Instagram and stuff like that. Okay, I don't think they even looked far enough to look for Asian queens. There are this whole bunch of other ones, like perhaps none of them applied or weren't good enough. Okay, and then exactly, can't cast people who aren't there. Okay, see, this is basically erasure of Asians. And then, so just select queens for the ethnicity and racial background for compliance to be inclusive. Rather, this is basically appealing to the equal opportunity scare. Okay, so when America started this equal opportunity to let black and people of color go into universities a bit easier, there was a lot of backlash to this, okay, in the white community because they thought that their jobs and their school places were being taken away. Okay, I'm gonna go in a little bit of the black called Hidden. Just packing it on the outer corner. Yeah, and then this one. If every country had people from every ethnic background, what would be the point of hosting it there? Might as well keep it the USA version, surely. This is basically arguing for segregation, right? Is this wants to make sure that, the races are segregated and not given the chance to compete together and be seen together. So yeah, really, in the end, all this really just ends up being extremely racist and extremely problematic. Here a whole bunch of other ones that basically trying to erase Asians again, right? There aren't a lot of Asian queens in the New Zealand drag community, perhaps why. That's not true, okay? Just a little bit of Googling tells you that there are quite a lot of amazing Asian queens in Australia and New Zealand, okay? For example, there's this queen called Medulla Oblongata from New Zealand, okay? She's in Maldives off the South Asian coast of India. There's this great trans queen called Asia Buffet. She's Filipino and she's from Melbourne, okay? Check them all out, okay? And of course, Zeenat Parveen, she's Indian from Sydney. Okay, so lots of Asian queens, okay, but no representation. I'm gonna decide how to proceed. Okay, I'm just gonna cut the crease a little bit. So far, we've seen a whole bunch of different examples of white fragility here, right? There's denial that Asian people exist. There's denial that there's racism at all. Okay, there's anger at me even bringing this up. So now before I finish off the eyes, I'm gonna go in and do my base. Okay, so it's gonna be white on this side, white on this side. Yeah, white on this side. Why is it opposite? Oh, it is flipped. All right, I've powdered this all with white. Now I'm just gonna go in with this side with red. I'm gonna try to get this line down the middle really, really intense. So I'm gonna use some masking tape to do the border. I hope it doesn't lift off any of the foundation, but if it does, we can put it back later. Right down the middle. Something like that. And now, let's go into red. Oh, I forgot to prime. Damn it. Trying not to get any pink at all. Okay, I'm gonna concentrate on this first. Go all the way up to the eye. Okay, not bad. I'll clean that up later with some brushes, but I think that's the idea. Here are some other messages. This one, oh my god, race again. Why has the color of one's skin got to come into Drag Race? Okay, so not wanting to discuss it at all. If there are no Asian contestants, there are none. Why must there be a problem? How can we just enjoy Drag Race for what it is, fun, and stop the shit stirring? About race, now can I get an amen? And then they use Raven as an amen, and Raven is, of course, recently has been the epitome of blackfishing, right? She's white, but she paints herself almost like a queen of color. I mean, this is what some people have actually criticized her for, but you know, I don't really think it's much of a thing. I mean, sometimes I do adjust my shade according to the look, so you know, it's very hard to ding Raven for that. But you know, the main comment, basically erasing everything again. You just don't want to discuss race. I'm gonna try again to go down the neck because I want to get a nice straight line down the neck too. This is a guy who comes to my defense saying, representation matters. Your skin color is in every advertisement, on every billboard, on every TV since the inception of media and advertising. You don't have to think about representation when the world has revolved around your skin color for hundreds of years. That's true. Whiteness has been the default for a very, very long time. And when this is pointed out, a lot of people get so defensive. Okay, his second point, anti-Asian bigotry has peaked this past year. Of course, folks are going to be aware and cognizant. True. And we have to keep talking about it. Okay, there we go. Okay, now I'm going to finish the under eye. I'm going to clean this up a bit. I'm going to give myself a white brow on this side. Okay, and number 3, gay men have been racist AF to non-white queens when a racial preference is a casual conversational remark rather than something to call out there's a problem. Yeah, exactly. And especially Asian people. I think the discourse for black people and black queens is really good, okay? A lot of black queens speak up a lot of time. The Vixen, even Bob the drag queen, Tamisha Iman, they speak about racism in the drag race community all the time, okay? But the Asian queens, I mean, Soju was quite vocal during her season, but Soju has turned out to be a little bit problematic. The other Asian queens don't talk as much about this as I would like. Maybe because they also have a little bit of a position of privilege, okay? Plastic Tiara is gorgeous, so she doesn't really need to put herself out there all the time. And Asians, yeah, I guess basically Asians just do not talk about this as much because of our upbringing. Okay, I'm gonna set this side really quickly and I'll be right back. Whew, okay, so I've covered myself with color set and a bit of RCMA. Now I'm just going to go in again with my red, okay, from the Avani Greg palette on a bigger brush just to knock all this off. So that's a nice clean base. Yeah, that's a nice clean line down the middle. Okay, and I think to contour, I'm going to need to use a little bit of grey. Okay, I'm going to use a grey here called Bruh. Contour the white side. Okay, so back to the comments. Okay, so here are some, you know, kind of like in-between kind of comments. This guy says, there were 2 POC queens on Drag Race down under. Them leaving because they aren't very good does not mean they didn't get a chance. This doesn't sit right with me, these kind of comments, right? They still trying to say that queens of color are just not as good as white queens, right? And then this one here says, There were no auditions for season 1 of Drag Race Down Under. The queens were invited and there were 2 POC. You should post your comment to the producers of the show and to RuPaul and they would have made the selection. Why does it have to fall on the person of colour to try to make the change? All I was saying is that I was sad that there were no queens. I'm allowed to express my sadness, right? It's basically saying it's beyond your control. It's not, Asian queens are just not good enough. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit of pink in that. This pinkish grey contour. Okay, on the red side, I'm gonna go in with a little bit of black and red. Okay, and here, another one says, or just watch Drag Race Thailand. Okay, so that's another vote for segregation. Okay, and you know Drag Race Thailand, although it's all Asian queens, no one in the West talks about it. I mean, there's another comment here which says, people recognize this but don't give Thailand any time. I'm sick of the best drag race competition continually being ignored. It's true, you know, it's always being erased. I was even like a bit guilty of this myself when I said that Lawrence Chaney was the first plus-size queen, because Natala Pliakam, which won Drag Race Thailand season 1, is actually the first, well, slightly bigger queen. She's actually quite small. I met her once and she's really, really small, so I didn't jump to my mind to call her a plus-size queen. These are the things that we are dealing with. And I say, can't wait to see Pangina on International All-Stars. Is she going to be on? I wonder. I think Drag Her, the podcast, actually did a really good dive into Drag Race Thailand Season 2. They even had Jeannie and my friend Vanda Miss Joachim on as guests, so I would really check them out. Mano Agapion, he's quite funny, and I really like that. That's one of my favorite Drag Race podcasts. Okay, to close off, let's just go into some of the more positive comments. This is really a talented queen called Marilyn Ocampo. I think she's Filipino. She does all these really, really great Drag Race recreations. Okay, I would check her out, check her Instagram out. She comes and supports me and says, of course, the non-Asians missed the point. Yeah, of course, people dragged her for that, and she shared my post, so thank you, Marilyn. Okay, and of course there's some people who admitted they didn't notice this and that I'm right, and they were glad that I pointed it out, which I mean is good to hear. Okay, I think we really need to be able to talk about these things, right? This lady says, I didn't notice this, but you're completely right. What a shame. Maybe you should write to the producers. I'd have thought a show like Drag Race would want to be as inclusive as possible. Yeah, I think so too. You know, I think Drag Race does pride itself on being as inclusive, but I think Ru has said that he wants to ease Drag Race into Joe and Jane beer can or something like that. Okay, so the first seasons of Drag Race are always the most acceptable kind of queens. Okay, let's go in with this liners now. Okay, I was going to make some stencils for this, but I decided that was a bit too difficult, and I'm now going to just basically freehand it. Let's hope this goes alright. Okay, so my white Suva Beauty. I'm going to try this new UV Primaries, this new Suva Beauty palette. It's got white and primary colors and black. Let's just map all this out with a pencil first. This is going to be quite hard to do backwards. The O is going to be here. Trying to get the font right as well. This is going to be tricky. Okay, first with the white. This is going to require a lot more concentration than I thought. So I'm just going to go off camera and do all this right now, alright? Alright, okay, so that was actually a lot easier than I thought. Okay, so now I'm just going to go in some liner. I think no lips today. Okay, I'm just going to go for a very strong statement on my face. Let's just close off with some of the more positive messages that I got. This lady says, I agree, there's a large Indonesian community in Holland. That's true. Okay, so all the erasure is just nonsense, right? Okay, so there is a large Indonesian community in Holland. Okay, in fact, Raja is Dutch Indonesian. Okay, that's where you get Rijsttafel. Okay, this is something like nasi padang but brought over for the Dutch. Okay, and of course, there's a large AAPI community in Australia. True, Polynesian. Coco Jumbo is Polynesian, but there are many others as well I mentioned earlier. Okay, and UK is very, very diverse. There's tons of Asian queens in UK. I'm very surprised that Drag Race UK Season 2 had no Asian queens at all. There are these others that say, I wish Something Wong got further in UK Season 1. Yes, I love Something Wong. And someone agrees. I agree representation matters. So yeah, okay, so representation is very, very important. Okay, yeah, so I think those were all the comments that I bothered to pick up. I don't know, I just have to keep drumming it in that, you know, representation really, really is so important. I think a white person just cannot understand the feeling when you see someone that you can relate to on screen. Okay, it really, really changes your world, really opens up your possibilities to doing anything. and being reminded that there are some people who do not have the experience that they have can really stir up some nasty emotions. And you know, talking about this, I'm sure watching this video, a lot of white people will have certain feelings, okay? Thinking that maybe I'm overreacting or something, or, you know, painting all white people with the same brush, but I'm not, okay? So white people, I think most white people, of course, is not a monolith. And you have to understand when you talk about Asian people, we're not a monolith either, okay? Every single person is different. So I know so many white people who are fine talking about race, okay? But, you know, online people just seem to take the gloves off or get very defensive a lot easier. It's very hard to disentangle white supremacy, white privilege, and white fragility. And these are things that we have to be able to, as I keep saying, talk about. Okay, so I think I'm done just smoking this out a little bit more. And I'm just going to throw on some lashes. And I think I'll be back with the finished look and a wrap up. Alright? Alright, this is the finished look. Stop Asian Hate. This is the amazing dress that Miss Universe Bernadette Belle Ong wore for the pageant. And it's designed by Arwin Mariales, a Filipino designer. Yeah, so what do you guys think? Am I overreacting or am I being too SJW? I think we really need to talk about representation, and I really feel that Drag Race is in a position to give every single season a good spectrum of queens every single time, not only by race but also by gender identity and by class and by everything. I mean, it's great to see queens with amazing privilege and access like Aquaria or Cracker competing against queens with lower means like Heidi and Closet and everything, and seeing that they can actually compete on the same stage, and drag really neutralizes everything. It just depends on your talent, your personality, and your charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent to shine through. It doesn't matter where you come from, right? So I really think that Drag Race should embrace that. Okay, I'm not painted all the way down here because I don't want to get my white dress dirty, but I'll fix this later in post. What was I saying? Yeah, that everyone should get a nice, good opportunity. All right. So, if you agree with me, give me a big thumbs up. If you don't agree with me, give me a big thumbs up anyway, and share this video to try to spread the word about representation and stop Asian hate. You know, I don't really like the slogan "Stop Asian Hate." You know, the word "hate" in it really takes away from it, I think. It's not like Black Lives Matter and Trans Lives Matter, which is a kind more like a positive kind of a branding, right? But anyway, we gotta say it all, okay? Black Lives Matter, Trans Lives Matter, and Stop Asian Hate, okay? And Free Palestine. Yes, and the Myanmars, and the Uyghurs, everybody. This is getting too much. Alright, I gotta go. Alright, I'll see you later. Bye. Femination. Femination. My favorite kimchi song. I played it over and over again after season 8. I still play it actually. I film a TikTok. Check out my other videos. I painted myself as a trans flag once, and also the asexual flag. Representation, please. Bye.